If you're wondering how to move your life and career forward with COVID-19 in the picture, have a listen to what some creatives are doing right here in New York City. COVID-19 insights from New York City creatives. Let's get to it.
You've heard of unconditional love, but have you heard of the secret to unconditional happiness and allowing more into your life? More wealth, more success, and more love. More freedom in your life right now. Welcome to the Happy Bar with Israel Savage.
I'd love to hear just your main takeaway from today.
My takeaway is just it's nice to feel a sense of not being alone in my thoughts or my experiences of what I've been going through myself with everything. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I do want to say it's important, we all need support. We just did this big round of auditions. And so we had lots of folks come through. And one of the things that we reminded everybody of was how important it was to find and re-examine your ensemble, not just in theater, but in your life. Like, who's my team? This were the 80s, my posse. And you have to re-examine that because your team from last year may not be the team that's gonna support you through this evolution, your next evolution, your next incarnation. So it's worth looking at, but we always need the support. We always need it. And we've got to be conscious of examining and re-examining that and going after that in our lives.
Mm-hmm. I have a tendency to go really inward, especially when I'm going through something difficult and just kind of like shut the world off. But it's funny, I'm seeing a lot of contrast in, how much I love contrast, really, because for myself, I feel like, well, so many of us are retreating. I feel like I'm like going outward, like I'm coming out, and it's kind of strange.
That's interesting. Well, I think that makes total sense. I read this thing. The gist of it was that chimpanzees were starting to come back into the streets in certain countries and kind of take over. The water had cleared up in Venice. All of these things by as a world kind of going inward, the rest of the world is coming out to play, the animal kingdom. Mm-hmm. So I think that makes total sense if you're normally an introvert. Now that things are a little quieter, you're like, woo!
There were a lot of metaphors that you talked about, Israel, and I like the monkey bars of life. And I also like what you said about, I feel a real unity in what's going on in the social distancing. So it's nice.
Yeah.
Everybody's stories and sharing, and myself for opening my heart.
Yeah, shared experiences are so important, and it's rare, if ever it happens, that you have a worldwide shared experience where everyone has a reference point, It's like a fraternity. Although I was never in a fraternity.
I'm so happy that I had the good sense to join this group today. Everything everybody said, I'm underlining it.
I just want to, first of all, thank you for this session. It's been lovely to see everyone's faces and to hear everyone's perspective on the situation in terms of what's happening right now. And it's great to know that we are all, united in this through our ability to create and honing our creative skills, zooming in on our creative skills. Again, what you said before about not being the writer of the story, just kind of falling, releasing, being the experiencer, and to just live in joy, live in delight. That's really important for me right now. And so I thank you for that. You also said a really great phrase. You said the emotional palette. And I'm going to definitely hold on to that one.
I took away from it is allow ourselves to be free and pretty much just, focus on the positive, use our environment to push us to be better. My interpretation of it, wrote things like that and just adjust to the change, pretty much.
Yeah, I love that. Focus on the positive Notice the negative, but focus on the positive. And maybe I would even say notice the pleasant, but notice the unpleasant, but focus on the pleasant. We want to acknowledge these things that happen that maybe we don't like as much, but where we put our consistent focus, that's where we really want to be intentional, because that's what we get more of.
One thing I really loved is the spectrum that you talked about. And I've heard you talk about it before, and hearing about it every time helps remind me how I really subscribe to that idea. And it was good to be reminded of it. And it helped me see myself in this context and what I'm really looking for.
I mean, it was so much. It was like a gumbo of stuff. So, for me, it was maybe more of just like the overall experience than the kind of pinpoint one. The quote, I'm paraphrasing, but a whole ordeal about not trying to write your experience, but being a part of the experience is so different, and it's such a great perspective to take because, in that, we had touched on stuff about responsibility. And it is so important that we just remember that, we do have a responsibility, even within sometimes of like the chaos or just things falling apart, the responsibility sometimes to show up, the responsibility to kind of see it through, the responsibility to once that's happened, kind of to like, what do I do next? Because it just never is just like a crash and burn. It's like, even in this experience of what we are going through right now, it's our responsibility to create other things from that to kind of, people need stuff. What can I do? So a part of that is like, taking the responsibility, like, yeah, we're going through this and this is happening and we're quarantining, but, there's people who need you. And, someone was talking about that earlier, that she loved that feeling of being needed because we all do. We all are here to do that. So if we can take anything from this experience, and I want to encourage that, is that responsibility of what can I do?
And I want to throw out there too, words can sometimes get in the way, as powerful as the emotion underneath them can be. And sometimes we commingle words and we conflate words in our own interpretation as we try to interpret things. And one of those that I'm thinking of is desire. Desire is different than wanting. Like, pure desire feels good. But when we mix it in with less than, I'm incomplete and I need something to fill me up, that does not feel good because that has nothing to do with desire. We've commingled in these ideas and beliefs. And so the same with responsibility. I want to offer this. Pure responsibility and taking responsibility is power.
Yes.
But if it starts to not feel good, we might have mixed into that blame and guilt.
Yes.
And these are different. And so we want to tease apart these different ideas and just be aware your emotions will guide you every single time. Responsibility feels good. But if it doesn't feel good, ask yourself, okay, what have I mixed in there? It is like a gumbo. And if the gumbo is starting to taste a little off, then you've just added something in there that doesn't necessarily need to be in there, like blame or guilt. This really is such an empowering time, like every time. But I think it's accelerated because we're focused. We're focused on now what? That's the question. Now what? And we have the answer. And that's what I want to leave you with. Each one of you has the answer to your now what. Just got to be open to it. If anything in this episode resonated with you, take a moment to subscribe and then share it with just one person. It's our mission to make the world a happier place, one insight, one shift, one share at the time. Just one button click from you might be the very thing that helps someone else's life click into place. Until next time. Remember, if you'd like more tips on this topic, then go to the link posted in the description of this broadcast.